Good morning, everybody. We are again this a new month with a new episode of Conversation with the Guys. And today we have myself as of right now and our one leader, Deacon Dan. We're going to talk about today the word scapegoat. In today's society, we have a lot of people who don't take responsibility for their actions. They blame it on other people. And so that's the thing that we're going to talk about today. And we're going to start it off by me. I'm introducing myself. My name is Derek Durden. I'm the host of Conversation with the Guys every month. And my position here is just really to guide the conversation and keep it interesting and have you guys interact and be involved with the topic and make sure that we're talking about something that you guys can relate to. And so next, we also have Deacon Dan on. He let him introduce himself before we actually get directly into the topic.
Good morning, Deacon Dan Smith. I'm the proud and grateful husband of course, Deborah Smith. And we have four kids, three boys, one girl, seven grands. And I'm currently a retired law enforcement after 40 years. But I didn't stop working. I went ahead and picked up something, other type of businesses. I have a handyman service and a on service. But I also am the chairman of the Deacon Board of St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church, which I enjoy working in different aspects there at the church, doing my best. But the biggest thing, I just love the Lord and glad to be here this morning.
Yes, sir. I- my question to you, Deacon Dan, earlier this morning is how do you have such perfect hair and you wear all those hats?
Say that again there. How about,
How do you keep your hair so perfect when you wearing all those different hats every
hey,
day?
man? I just let it go.
Okay, let's dive right into it. First of all, we're talking about scapegoats. So I'm gonna kick it off with let's talk about why do people avert responsibility from certain situations. The question is, do we think that they have some type of disorder or um, is it something within them that's keeping them from taking responsibility? And my perspective on this, Deacon Dan, is I think that when you take responsibility for your own action, it's a real burden because once you take on that responsibility, then you are responsible for the change. And so I see a lot of people who say, well, it was my wife or my husband or it's the other person's fault. And so they shift the blame on them because in that aspect, it says that I don't have to change, they do. But in life, we grow to understand that we only control ourselves. We can't control another person. We can kind of guide or influence them, but the ultimate decision for change is up to that person. And so when we place the blame on the other person, it allows us a scapegoat in order to not make the changes that we need to make in our lives in order to make our lives better. So, Deacon Dan, what's your take on
One of my take on it is just like it's a saying that I always have in my deacon ministry. And it's not saying they're a scapegoat, but excuses. And I always tell them excuses only satisfy the one that makes it.
it?
So, you got the person that try to, uh, blame others. He has I don't know if that's immature. He's immature. He's dysfunctional. He really don't want to take on, like say, responsibilities. Uh, he can't. I think he's a person that's probably is weak uh, because I always believe if you take responsibility, it'll build your character, it'll build your morale, and it'll keep you from making these different mistakes or errors or whatever, trying to blame others. So that's some of the stuff I look at, and like I say, it's easier to blame others than to accept that your fault.
Yeah.
And that's because like I said, because they got some type of weakness. They dysfunctional. They don't
Yeah.
have the experience of being. Uh, Sometimes I say they really don't love themselves and trying to put something on everybody else and not you taking the blame. So that's a I say that's a disorder.
Disorder. I think, like, just building off of what you said, when you said it's easier to blame other people, and you also said something about character. And so for me, when I hear that, when we speak about this, I think that um, the character of a person is often displayed in if they choose to take responsibility. Because one thing I know and understand, a true leader, he takes on that responsibility of the success or failure of a situation, no matter what the situation is. Okay, we got Dr. Levette.
Hey, good morning.
Okay,
Good
okay.
morning. Good
And
morning.
Good morning.
so, as you know, we're talking about Scapegoat today. We introduced me and Deacon Dan has already introduced ourselves.
My head now.
If you would, go ahead and introduce yourself and give us your
Okay.
thoughts about the topic of scapegoat.
Hey, great morning. Great morning. First of all, I apologize. Having some computer issues above all things, but hey, God is still good. But hey, I'm Dr. Joseph Levette. I'm a 32-year retired Army veteran. I'm definitely married to the lovely Tony Levette. We have 3 kids, 3 girls, 1 boy. We have 10 grandchildren and one that's on the way, hopefully sometime next month. Um, Also, I serve as a chaplain at Memorial, one of the local hospitals here, and love doing that work and serving people. Um, I love this platform that Dr. Well, I call her Doctor Dr. Deborah Smith has created. I love this platform because it gives us an opportunity to reach out to these young men and these mothers and single mothers and just help them, and even young women too. It helps them in trying to figure out life and how to not make some of the same mistakes that we've already made. So I'm always appreciative of being part of this platform. Man, this topic today, talking about scapegoats, man. I think a lot of times, you know, um, people use that as a means and a method to make excuses for things that happen in their life, and that's why I'm looking forward to the conversation today, because I think maybe we might draw out some stuff that can help people, kind of recenter their thoughts around not using that as an excuse or not using that as a means to life and getting out of certain situations. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Okay. And so right now, Dr. Levette, we're talking about is it easy? Is it easier for a person to blame somebody else or blame the other individual in the situation, or is it easier for them to take responsibility for it? You can go ahead and just lean into that for us.
So most of the time, it's easier. I think it's easier to blame someone else because, when you blame someone else, it takes the heat off of you. It takes the weight off of you. It takes even the self-awareness if you blaming someone else. When you take it on yourself, then it ought to weigh on you. You ought to feel that. You ought to feel a sense of accountability, a sense of responsibility. And oftentimes what we find is that people don't want to take that accountability. They don't want to take that responsibility. They rather just, hey, I'm gonna just blame it off on somebody else. And like I said, they're gonna make excuses. And a lot of times their excuses will also be because of other people. Well, I only did this. This only happened because so and so did this to me, so this is the way I reacted. So I think a lot of times it's easier to blame somebody else than it is to blame yourself or take on the responsibility yourself.
Okay, great word, great word. Deacon Dan, our next question is for you. What impact does blaming others have on a relationship? Does it make it healthier or does it make it more unhealthy?
It makes it more unhealthy because blaming that, because why I say make it unhealthy, when you try to keep blaming other people, you find that the person that you're trying to blame eventually gonna walk away from you. You're gonna have less communications. He's not gonna say anything. He's not gonna help you. And the reason for that is because I'm saying you are constantly blaming this person, well, for your mistakes and not accepting yourself. But I think that's one of the biggest things. It would really hurt a relationship. Uh, it would make a person, I don't know, I would say more like think about how my friends are, or not only that. I mean, even in marital life, you try to blame something on your wife, or wife trying to blame something on the husband, then that relationship's going to get tough. It's not going to be a loving relationship. You could develop, hatred. Uh, and the same thing without being, just friends, good friends. But it will, I think, in my opinion, and it will hurt a relationship totally. It might cause that relationship to break up.
For sure, that's definitely some solid information. And I'm going to talk more about on the financial side. A lot of times we don't take responsibility for our financial situation. A lot of times we can blame the economy or we can blame the prices, inflation. There's so many different things that a lot of us blame for our financial situations when a lot of times it's how we spend our money. A lot of times we can spend $10 a day on Starbucks, or we can spend money on clothes, shoes, and things that really don't further us financially. Because a lot of times it's all about instant gratification. Sometimes it takes time to build up your investment. Sometimes it takes time to build up a savings fund for a rainy day. And right now, we really, in the society we live in, it's all about instant gratification. Everybody wants to look rich, even if they're poor. And so sometimes we just got to take the time to make the right decisions, to sit down and really just say, let's create a budget. This is how much money I'm going to make this month. This is how much money I'm going to spend. I'm going to save this much. I'm going to tithe this much, or however you choose to allocate that money. But a lot of us don't even know where our money is going every month. We got bills. We understand that card notes, whatever it may be, food, gas, all these things happen. They're constant every month. But it's those things that are not fixed variables that we have every month that we're letting this money slowly leak out of our accounts, slowly leak out of our lives into the hands of other people. And then we complain about we got more month than we have money. And so for me, I think that when we blame the economy, when we blame who was elected, when we blame all these other things, we take the control out of our hands. And so with that, we continuously make those unhealthy decisions. And so our relationship with money continues to become more and more unhealthy. So I definitely concur with Deacon Dan when he's talked about marriages and relationships. So Dr. Levette, if you would expand on how blaming others in situations makes a relationship either more healthy or more unhealthy.
Well, I mean, it's real obvious that when you blaming others and you continuously do it, it becomes a pattern. And what happens when you we create patterns. If either it's a good pattern or it's a bad pattern. And if you start just blaming people, are you blaming, like, say, if it is, say, your spouse or your best friend, and you just all the time stuff go wrong, you blaming them because, well, you told me I should do this and you told me I should do that. But at the end of the day, it was still your responsibility. So once you start putting that off on other people, it start excuse me, it start tainting the relationship. And you start wondering why. Then now when you ready to you want to talk about something that's going on with you, whatever, they like, well, I'm busy, I don't want to, or they'll be like, hey, I don't want to hear that right now, because the last time I gave you some advice and it went wrong, and you threw the blame back at me, and I was just merely trying to help you. So blame game can always impact relationships, because you can lose a whole relationship you built over many years. You can be done built that relationship since grade school, and you could be now in your 30s or 40s or 50s, and because of one bad instance of blaming, you could lose a whole relationship. So that is the impact. You got to always know that when you're blaming others, excuse me, if you blame things on others that causes a significant rift in the relationship, it's going to impact it, and it's never going to be the same. So that's kind of my take on it.
But Derek, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna roll back with the Bible. It says, with our Proverbs, to tell us about God giving us, God gonna give us what we need. And then it say, someone says in that verse says, "He give me what I need, but if he give me too much, then I might not want to depend on him." So, and it's a good thing you brought a relationship with having in the economy and stuff in the areas like that. But I find that you're looking at, like I said, you're looking at blame for your situation of handling your finances. You can't blame the economy. You have to look at yourself, because if you do ask, the Bible give you instruction. You do the percentage, 10% God, 10. You take 20%, put away, 10% for yourself, and when the day is over with, you can see how your finances are. So that's why I say always ask God to give you what you need, but God will give you more than what you need. Right.
Yeah, definitely, because we all know and understand that we actually truly believers and understanders of the word. God is a God of abundance.
That's
So
right.
He's gonna give you what you need, but He also gonna give you enough to share with others in order to show that His light in your life can be shared with others also. So that's why I totally agree with you on that, Deacon Dan. So my question now is, how does blaming others, or is it a thing of trying to make myself look good in order to make other people's look bad? Or what is it, Deacon Dan? What are some of the benefits that a person that's blaming somebody, what are the benefits do you think that they feel like they're getting from blaming people?
They feel like they are. My main point is better than the other. If I can get this off of me, well, I'm gonna blame Derek. So Derek gonna have, it's on him, but I'm better than Derek by blaming Derek. But a person that that's placing blame, often feel resentment or anger or something like that. He hate it for the person they blame. But the thing about it, you flip it over, the person that being blamed often feel defensive, hurt, anger.
Mm.
So that is something that blaming one is most commonly, is somebody they really need some type of therapy or some help, or to look at it in the right directions, because it stroke the egos. It make them, like say, you want Pat, oh, I'm doing good. I'm patting you on the back. Pat your own self on the back. No, it's not good. Not good.
Okay, Dr. Levitt, if you would, he kind of talked about some of the benefits of being what a blamer, what they feel they benefit from. But he also kind of scraped the level of how the person that's being blamed feel. Can you kind of tap into that? How does it make a person feel when they're being blamed for everything in a relationship or everything that's going wrong? Can you kind of touch on that? How would a person feel for being the person that's blamed for everything?
Well, you're gonna feel like, man, I was only trying to help you. Maybe it was something that you gave them some advice on, and not necessarily that they had to use your advice, but the advice was actually to help, maybe even help you to think a little bit more about what decision you needed to make about something. So I mean, it has that effect on you as the person. When somebody blames you, that's not a good feeling. Somebody just blame you, especially if you know you didn't do really nothing wrong. You didn't put them in that situation. You didn't put them in whatever that they going through. You didn't cause it. You're not the cause of whatever they're blaming you for. That's when it really makes you feel like, wow, this makes me feel bad. Or the flip side to that is, if you gave somebody some advice and they took your advice, and it didn't turn out good, then you could feel bad. You could be like, oh God, I wish I wouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have told her to leave her husband. I shouldn't have told him to leave his wife. Now the kids are suffering. So when you look at it from the other side of the spectrum, you'll see that, yeah, that thing, it hurts. It hurts. And like Deacon Dan said, and even just to go with that, the other person is feeling like, oh yeah, whoo, I got that off of me because I knew it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me that did that. So now that I blame Deacon Dan, hey, and he got it. I blamed him and made him feel bad. You know, I should, if I'm a true friend, I should I should feel that back. I should be like, man, I didn't, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have blamed my friend like that. So that's how you got to look at it from both sides of the spectrum.
And just listen to something that you said. You talked about giving advice. In today's time with social media and the different outlets, everybody is giving advice. But the terrible thing about it is people are not having to be responsible for the advice that they're giving.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell you, like you said, leave your spouse, or I can tell you to do this with your child. But at the end of the day, if you decide to take that advice and apply it to your life, it doesn't change my life any. But you have to live with those consequences of taking my advice. So for me, just hearing that, I think that people who are giving advice to people need to be a whole lot more um, conscious of what they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
because every situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
Because you giving advice, but these individuals have to apply this to their life, and they have to live with these decisions for a lifetime. And so, just going back to the scapegoat, when we take the blame off ourselves and we blaming other people, like I said in the beginning, we take our control and give it to somebody else. When we talk about emotional intelligence, we talk about understanding how we think and feel about certain things. But also, we also have to reframe those things that we're going through and put it in a perspective where we can learn from it. And that's the biggest takeaway. If we blame other people, we don't have to learn from the decisions that we make. And if we don't learn from those decisions, if we don't learn, then we're going to continue to make the same decisions, but in different circumstances.
Right.
And so for me, that's the biggest thing. Like, it's all about improvement when so much of the world is all about impressing. Everybody want to impress everybody else, but nobody want to take the time to really work on themselves and make their own lives better. So, Deacon Dan, can you share with us what are some of the things that someone who has the habit of blaming people, what are some of the things that they can do to turn that around to stop blaming people and start taking more responsibility for their lives and how the outcome of some of their decisions?
Well, first of all, I think one of the biggest things they should think about is that blame they're trying to put on someone else. The negativism, the thinking of what they did. If they thought about it and go back and look at themselves. Now, I think looking at that, they're not looking at themselves. They're looking at trying to get stuff off of them. But if they thought about what they're doing and start, as to say, give themselves more constructive criticism and say, how can I, you know, accept this responsibility? Or I know that this is not right. I know Derek is my friend, and I know I should be blaming him for this. Derek wasn't part of what have I done, but now I got to think about it. I got to be more constructive in criticism, by giving myself more criticism. Now I'm here. I got to start thinking. In other words, I'm saying I'm trying to start thinking about myself, being this person, and develop more love within my heart than trying to give negativism, criticism, blaming somebody else. Let me take the responsibility. Let me man up to what I'm doing, and I think that will help a whole lot.
Dr. Levette, what is your ideas or techniques that somebody who is continuously blaming other people, what are some of the things that they can do to turn that around and try to take more responsibility for their actions in their lives?
Well, I would say this. Definitely, before you even go to blaming somebody, doing an internal assessment of yourself, doing an internal assessment of the decision you made, and whether you took their advice or not, it really falls on you because you're the one chose to use that advice. So doing an internal assessment and find out what was I doing? What did I do wrong in this situation? What what did I do? And then the other thing is a lot of times the way we can always do constructive criticism is we can do what the word of God said. We can pray and make our supplication known unto God. When we pray and ask God for, that's basically us asking God for help. God, I got a situation. I mean, because God will actually tell you what it is you need to do. So you don't even really have to get to that point of blaming others and getting into that, because a lot of time when you project your problems on other people, or you project something, a decision you need to make on other people, then of course you're gonna want to go back and blame them and get it off yourself. But the thing is, you got to internally assess yourself and say, what did I do? And really run it down. I mean, really give it some real thought process. Don't just run it across your mind. No, slow it down, and that's a crawl situation. You need to crawl that one across your mind. Take time and really sit and think and reflect on what happened. Why did it happen? What was my part in it? Because a lot of times if we understand what our part in it, it'll help us not even get to a blame game. So that's where I'm at with it. I think just doing an internal assessment before you, and because that's a critique of yourself and finding out what you need to find. You need to find out how you affected whatever the situation is.
But Dr. Levette, I look at something else about the Bible say, a person that do not want to be corrected.
Yes.
That's ooh. And he always think he put the blame on everybody else, but he's right, but he don't want to never be corrected.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, and to build on that, I do see a lot of that, what you just said, Dr. Levette, in relationships. One way or another. No gender is more prone to do it than the other. But a lot of times in relationships is we go into the relationships with a certain expectation or a certain ideal. And but we also bring in our baggage from past relationships. And a lot of times we don't deal with that baggage before we go to the next relationship. And so without that healing process, without that introspection that you're talking about, Dr. Levitt, you're gonna bring your relationship with Jim, John, Joseph into the relationship, your new relationship with Kevin, or your relationship with Brittany, Ashley, and Tanya, and your new relationship with Sonia. And so you having a relationship with all these different people, and you really think you're having one relationship with this one person, but it's a conglomerate of all the things that you've been through. Because we have certain issues that we have in our childhood, we're dealing with our parents, then that transfers into our relationships with our first heartbreak and all these failed relationships. Before we actually get into a successful relationship, we have so much built up in the negative aspect. We take all this negativity and expect a positive outcome in a new relationship, but really we have an old relationship with a new person. And so and then when things don't work out, we say, oh well, I did everything that I was supposed to do. But he or she, they didn't take out the trash, they didn't pay the bills, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. We have a long list of everything that they didn't do, but no list of what we didn't do. We judge others on what they're doing, but we judge ourselves on our intentions,
Right.
which is unfair. And then we wonder why our relationships are like they are, unhealthy, um, unsuccessful, and so many different other things. But once we do that work, that introspection, and a lot of times we got to go white, like I said, way back to childhood in order to tap in some of these things and tap into these negative emotions that we have in order to really bring ourselves to be a whole person instead of being a better half looking for another half.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be two people, two individual people, two healed people in order to have a healthy relationship, not two broken people trying to put my pieces together with your pieces and they don't fit.
Right.
And so I definitely agree with you, Dr. Levitt. And also, Deacon Dan, you gave some powerful words too. And, and, and so my thing is, let's not place the blame on others. Let's do that introspective work on ourselves, like Dr. Levitt said, before we take on some new endeavors, take on new relationships, take on different things that we're gonna take some bad baggage into and thinking we're gonna get some positive results. So the next question is just on everything that we said, Deacon Dan, what are some of the main points that you feel like should be focused on for somebody who's trying to change themselves from a person who is a scapegoat mentality person to a person of responsibility?
One of the things I say, love yourself more.
Mhm.
You know, love yourself more. Because if you love yourself more, do you, and think about it, do I love myself where I put myself in what I have been done? Is trying to make somebody else a scapegoat instead of me taking my responsibility? I don't care nothing about them, but do I love myself? I'm trying to get out of everything that I done, but I got to come back and say, do I love myself? That's one of the things. Love yourself.
Yes.
And another thing, you need to, I'm like the, Michael Jackson say, look in the mirror. And hey, wait a minute, hold up. I got a problem. I need some help. Find you some help. If you don't think you could break that cycle, find some help. That somebody will be able to help you. And stop shifting the blame on others. So those are two things I really would say. Love yourself and find some help.
Okay, Dr. Levitt, I need you to piggyback off what you think some techniques or tools that a person can use But I also want you to kind of refine what it looks like to get some help. Like Deacon Dan said, what does get some help look like? Can you kind of expound on those things for us?
I can. Let me start off first with this. I want to, and I'm gonna add to what the things that Deacon, I would call him Dr. Dan, but I'm gonna expand on what he said. I'm gonna add one to that too, and that's value your relationship with others. You
Right.
have to find the value in your relationship with other people, and then that kind of sometimes help you because you'll be like, well, no, I don't want to blame Derek for that because even though he was just trying to help me, so I'm not gonna blame him. He my friend, and I mean, he gave me good advice. I probably didn't, you know, share it. I didn't share it right. And then getting into what you were saying, and give me the other part of that, Derek. Again, you were saying
I was saying that Deacon Dan shared about getting some help.
yes,
What
I
does
got
that look like? And also some of the tools and techniques somebody can use who want to change from being a blamer to somebody who takes responsibility for their lives.
got it. Okay, so it's never, and see, this is a big problem among African, particularly among African Americans, is they never feel that they need no help beyond themselves. And when you don't feel like you need no help beyond yourself and your friends, you start turning to things just like Derek brought up earlier. You start turning into social media and stuff because you're looking for them yeses and girl, I got you, and bruh, you good. I got your back and all of that. But you know what? A lot of those times, them people really ain't got your back and they really ain't got you. It's just they saying that just because you said something and it evoked the response that they felt like they needed to say. But it's all right to go and talk to a counselor. It's all right to go and about what you're feeling because counseling is nothing more than expressing yourself. That's all it is. You're going and you're expressing yourself, and a counselor is there to help guide you in how you can resolve your expressions. That's all it is. I do different forms of counseling as well. So I know, you know, don't feel we gotta be able to go and seek help. We gotta, and help can't be your friend that done already been married 3 times if you need some marriage help. It really can't be your best friend that's been married 3 times. It can't be, if you a young lady, your help can't be a girl who got 5 kids, and you talking about uh being in a relationship with a guy and now you pregnant or whatever's going on. You just gotta really seek help, seek wise counsel, as the Bible say. Excuse me. Seek wise counsel. If you want to get some good advice on marriage, you want to go to somebody like Deacon Dan and Dr. Deborah because they've been married a long time and they've been effective in doing marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to just sit. You don't want to go to somebody only been married 2 months, 2 years, or 3 years just because they're your best friend, or because they're your first cousin, or even your sister, brother. So that's kind of my take on that.
That's a lot to unload right there. um, let's just talk about valuing the relationship. Dr. Levitt, you said that one of the things that you feel will help somebody to step out of being a blamer and taking responsibility is valuing the relationship. But in order to value the relationship, you have to step outside of being selfish.
Mhm.
You cannot be the focus of the relationship and think that you're going to value the relationship. You have to know and understand that this relationship is a combination of two people and hopefully God, which will make three, but definitely two people coming together. One, you should have a common goal. You should have a plan for what this relationship is for. If the plan is marriage, if the plan is being successful financially, whatever this combination is, this collaboration is, you need to have a goal that one, both people are willing to be a part of, and it's going to take both of y'all to the next level. So the focus of the relationship cannot be what am I going to get out of the relationship.
Mhm.
If you truly want to value a relationship, you have to bring value, not take value. And that's where a lot of us get this relationship thing wrong. So many people are focused on what can I get out of a relationship.
Mhm.
Really, that's not a relationship, that's a transaction. And so we have to shift that mind frame to really be involved in something that's progressive, not only for yourself, but for everybody involved.
Derek, let me say this real quick. And
Go ahead.
it's interesting you said that when you rephrased the question a little bit to me, I left a little piece off of that. But you just to show that me and you was pretty much on one accord in thinking, because what I was put down in my notes said, value the relationship by not being selfish and not being self-centered. So, and you just covered all of that. I didn't cover it because I was trying to get to the other part of the question that you asked me. But there it is. You hit it. So I just wanted to say that we flowing real good here.
Oh yeah, that's what it's about, Deacon Dan. You can chime in anytime if you want to, but and just one of the things that you also said, Deacon Dan, just focusing on just being a better person at the end of the day. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that when you blaming other people, you rob yourself of that opportunity because like what we know and understand, the first step of improvement is acknowledging that you have a problem, acknowledging that there is something that can be improved. Because if you feel like you got it all together or you're the perfect person for a relationship, when you see all these things about what do you bring to the table and all this type of stuff, it gives us a construed mindset of who we are as people and how we should approach relationships. But once we get outside of that and really understand the true value of what relationships are and how they are for not just for ourselves, but for the betterment of everybody involved, because we can have a relationship with an intimate other, but that relationship just don't involve us. It involves our children too. These children are seeing these relationships and what they're going to do, they're going to implement the same tools and techniques that they're seeing into the relationships that they're having. And so these relationships and how we handling these things are really become generational. And that's why we see the decline in relationships, decline in marriages, decline in so many things, because each generation is taking some of the things that they learned from the previous generation, implementing it into their lives and relationships. And it's becoming more and more unhealthy as we go. If you want to, Deacon Dan, go ahead and chime in.
Oh well, you talking about this relationship. You got to be able to relate to
Mm,
one another.
mm.
You know, and then you can express doing things. It's not that I am so better than you are.
That's good.
When you're in a relationship, like you say, you are one.
That's good.
We work together. If I got a problem, communicate. Let's work it out. To give them directions that we wants to go. Don't, I can say, because don't kick the other person in the butt because you feel that you're better than them. But in that relationship, you got to come into, you got to make that healthy relationship. You got to relate with one another,
That's good.
you know. And another thing I like, relationship, do not shift the blame. When we talk about scapegoat, don't shift it. Just work it out. Don't try to shift the blame. We're there. You know, Joe and I, we got a relationship. We can't shift the blame. Our relationship with each other, you know.
That's good.
As I always tell people, uh, I'm no better than you, and you no better than I. So we work together and we come up to have a great relationship.
Okay, preacher. Okay, preacher.
I told you that's
Bring that
Dr.
word.
Dan. I told
Okay.
you that's Dr. Dan.
Yes, sir. So Dr. Levitt, Pastor Deacon Dan spoke about a couple of things. Let's talk about communication, which is a vital and foundational a tool that's necessary for a good relationship. Let's talk about, just chime in on your thoughts on communication and how blaming or not blaming is a part or can play a role in it.
Communication is everything in everything. I tend to say that all the time. I heard that in my counseling class when I was in seminary. Our instructor said, our professor said, communication is everything in everything. So if you have good communication, a lot of times you can talk things through, and that it don't even have to come to a blame, because communication means that we're talking to each other, we're expressing ourselves to each other, no matter what the situation is. A lot of times where that get lost, that is, people stop communicating and they start being selfish.
Mm,
And so when they start being selfish, then they start just self-reflecting. They just start not just self-reflecting, but they start self-deflecting.
mm,
And what that does is now that changes the course of communication. That changes the where communication is now going to go. If you start off communication with a good expected end, like, hey, I'm starting this communication because I want to get to a good place in whatever the situation is, then you got to be able to maintain that same thought. You got to think, okay, no, we trying to go and keep stay in a good place. So if you get off track, then you got to be acceptable to that person saying, hold up, we getting off track here. We going in the wrong direction. Let's bring this back to where we were, because we was actually going good, and kind of you went off in a tangent. So communication is about that. And you know what? You have to give the person you're talking to permission to be able to express to you what they're feeling about something you did, said, or, you got to give them permission to say that to you without you deflecting back on them. So, that's why communication is important. But it's not just communication, it's the type of communication. You want effective communication. You don't want communication just to talk. You want communication to solve. And if you keep it in that vein and you stay on track with your communication, looking at your end state of where you're trying to go with the communication, that's why I think any conversation should have a good end state to it. You know where you're trying to get to with the end of this. This is what you want out of it. This is the resolve you want out of it. And if you do that every time and you stay on track, and you'll keep it, and you hold each other accountable to staying on track, you'll meet that end goal, and then you'll see that things get worked out in a great way.
powerful, powerful. I want to shout out to Maria, Agnes, and Peggy for tuning in and watching us. Before I go on to this, because I definitely want to piggyback something. Because what I heard when you were speaking was keep the main thing the main thing.
There you go. Exactly.
And so communication is a two-way street. It's not always about talking. Sometimes it's about listening. And not listening to hear, but listening to understand. Because when that other person is talking, they are telling you their experience, what they're feeling, and it's up to you to take the time to really try to take that in and understand it. Because if you don't understand it and you only listening in order to make your next statement, then you're missing out on some great opportunities to make the relationship better. And so please know and understand, because we have people like Maria who just recently got married. Shout out to her and Ken. And some of these, hopefully, some of these things that we're talking about can be something that's used in their marriage and relationship, and anybody else that's listening that can take it and implement it, because that's what it's all about. It ain't about us talking; it's about people taking things away and applying it to their life and make their lives better. And so, as we get ready to close, I want each of you guys to um, give a summary, a topic, a overview of what we talked about today. Hit some points real quick, because as we get ready to leave out, because we always want to give a shout out to Deborah and everything that she's doing. But for right now, let's go ahead and hit our closing points. so we can get ready to, close this out. Dr. Levette, if you would, go ahead and start us off.
Listen, first of all, I want to say to everyone that's listening, share, 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 share this, share this whole live feed, share it because it is worthy for people to hear. And I think sometimes you never know who will watch this, that it will become a blessing to, and that it will help them because maybe somebody dealing with something right now that they need, they need an answer to, but, they don't know how to go about doing it. And so maybe just listening to this podcast, it'll help them. And so I would say that first. But here it is, going back to the whole topic of being a scapegoat. Don't allow yourself to blame the other people. Put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel if they blame you? And that's kind of a good summary of what we talked about today. How would you feel if somebody blamed you because their marriage failed? Or they blame you because their child ain't speaking to them? Or they blame you because whatever the case is? Put yourself in their shoes. And so that's why I always say, communication, 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 effective communication. Talk it through. Listen, like Derek said, talk it through. While one talking, the other one should be listening. And then sometimes it takes that you both listen. Then you say, well, how does that go? Well, you both just go off into prayer and listen to what God has to say to you both. Mm-hmm. And then you come back and watch how good the communication go. Because now you both heard from God. And so communicate. Seek help. We talked about that early too as well. Seek help. Whatever, if you need help, seek help. But because at the end of the day, the goal is for you not to be a blamer. And that's my 5 cents.
Whew, that was some heat right there. Okay, Deacon Dan.
I ain't got much to say because Dr. Levette done said it all. No, but I say, I'm going to add something to that. He said communication. I always say have constructive criticism. Yeah. If you're going to criticize, make sure it's constructive. It's not negative criticism. You got to have that positive criticism along with that positive communication, and what they're going to add up to a great relationship. So that's all I'm going to put on that part right there.
I mean, you can also, go ahead and shout out to your wonderful wife. And,
okay, okay. I mean, she's doing something to the office. I had the book. I don't see the book, but one of you guys got the book. Can y'all just put it up for me?
There it is, right
there. There you go. It's a great book. Some great points in there. I had an opportunity to do a mentor with a guy last week, and he said, he told me something and stuck to me. He said, I just want to know that I hear God, and you confirm what you were saying, that I heard God. Mm-hmm. So even with this, and Coach Deborah, she has did this book. We spoke at a school. As a matter of fact, Minds of the Future. He spoke with the senior classes, and I had the little ones in kindergarten. And we always go over there when they have literacy week. So we talk with them, and I asked them one of the questions. I say, "How many of y'all wants to be millionaire?" All of them raised their hand, right?
Right. So
I say, "Are you working toward it now?" And one little boy said, "What do you mean? I got working toward it now. I ain't number 6 years old." So I say, "That's what I'm talking about. You start now. When you get 30, you'll be a millionaire earlier." But yes, Coach Deborah's doing a great job, and she had my support 100%. And like I say, we always see if be able to. I guess I better put something in there. When you give constructive criticism, you ought to be able to receive it in a constructive manner,
Mm.
where it's not being negative against you or whatever, but it helps you build where you're trying to go. So that's why I say build your best life.
Yes, sir. And for me, I'm just gonna make it brief because we talked about constructive criticism, being able to receive it, also give. We talked about getting help. We talked about um, finding value in a relationship. We talked about so many great different things, and um, I just feel like everything that we talked about was definitely something that can be utilized to build a better person, and that better person can be a foundation of a better relationship. And so, with that, I also want to give a shout out to Dr. Wilbon. I want to give a shout out to Ricardo Miller and definitely Deborah Smith for all the things that she's doing, the platform she's creating, the opportunities she's creating for a lot of different people, and just pointing to these single moms and these sons who really need that help. And she's really making a big impact. And this is one of the platforms that she used in order to reach different people. And I'm just very appreciative to be able to host this every month and to be a part of it every month and to pour into the viewers and add value because at the end of the day, that's what this all about. So I want to thank everybody that tuned in, everybody who's behind the scenes, who put together the flyers, who create the platform and participate, the people who are in line just to even just be on the podcast. These people are people who just want to make an impact too. And so I just look forward to next month, what that brings. And I hope that all of you will tune in next month, same time, second Saturday of every month, and just come get you some. Just pull up a chair, get you some popcorn or whatever it is, and just tune in and give us your full attention because in the end you're gonna get the reward for it. So with that, I'm gonna close this out. Thank you guys, everybody who was a part of it, and see you next month, same time, same place. Build your best life. Conversation with the guys.
Thank you.